Well, hello everyone and welcome back to Before the Four. It is digital host A.J. Wuest here with another Before the Four for you all this fine Wednesday afternoon. If you're new to Before the Four, this is a live stream where I go on Facebook Live, I go on YouTube Live, and I go on the WAFF.com live stream page and talk about WAFF's top stories before the evening newscast. And if you're new to Before the Four, I want to thank you so much for joining in with me this afternoon. And of course, if you are returning, thank you for spending your afternoons with me. Anyway, I think it is about that time we jump into today's top stories. And of course, starting things off, today is Juneteenth, the federal holiday where we recognize and celebrate the ending of slavery here in the United States of America. Now, the final enforcement of the Emancipation Proclamation was signed into Texas law on June 19, 1865. And if you're looking to celebrate this holiday in Huntsville, there will certainly be a lot going on as we head into the weekend. Now, 48 Sarah Grace Kennedy is on your side with everything you can do to celebrate. You can find her story of events on our website, WAFF.com. And earlier today, she spoke with Randy Kelly. He is the pastor of Lakeside United Methodist Church in Huntsville on the importance of knowing our history. And let's take a listen. One second, y'all. I gotta let this video play. All right.
And this is an opportunity for those of us who are conscious to be able to teach the future generations and empower them with the knowledge that they need. Because if they don't know the history of the struggle, there's no way they can continue to struggle.
Very true. It is super important that we know our history, and one of the Juneteenth events happening this weekend will be held at the Orion Amphitheater. And recently I spoke with Cultural and Community Program Manager Lena Weldon for 48 Now. And here's a little bit of what she had to say about Saturday's celebration at the Orion Amphitheater. Let's take a listen.
We're kind of beefing it up a little bit. Last year it was from 2 to 6, so this year it is 12 to 6 p.m. So it's kind of an afternoon, early evening event. We're planning to have food trucks, games for the kiddos, a whole bounce house area and games. We will have local vendors and artists, and at the top of every hour we're going to have music from all different genres that are focused on Black-led artists.
And that certainly sounds like it will be a great time. Remember, this Saturday at the Orion Amphitheater, it is completely free of charge, and you're not going to want to miss it. Now, a little in sports news. Now, last night, legendary baseball player Willie Mays passed away at 93 years old. Born in Westfield, Alabama back in 1931, Mays had an incredible career, mostly for the Giants and later the New York Mets. He was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1979. Now let's take a listen to NBC's Kurt Gregory on Mays' outstanding life and career.
Power, speed, and the smile of a champion. But perhaps the finest moment in Willie Mays' career came with his back turned to the camera. The Say Hey Kid was born in Westfield, Alabama in 1931. He began playing professional baseball at 16 and got the call to play in the major leagues for the New York Giants just 4 years later.
You can see that all the ingredients of being a star was there.
He won Rookie of the Year honors that season and the hearts of New York fans with his sensational play and sparkling personality. But when the Giants moved west to San Francisco in 1958, the flashy center fielder struggled to gain fan support, despite stellar performances on the field. He ultimately returned to New York, playing his last 2 seasons in a Mets uniform.
Willie, say goodbye to America. Thank you very much.
When Willie Mays ended his career in 1973, he had won 2 Most Valuable Player awards, 12 Gold Gloves, and was part of 24 All-Star games. In 1979, Mays took his place among the all-time greats in the Baseball Hall of Fame. And when the San Francisco Giants opened their new ballpark in 2000, Willie Mays was memorialized as the greatest player in the history of the franchise. Kurt Gregory, NBC News.
Very cool. And also, if you are unaware, a Major League Baseball game is coming to the great state of Alabama. Tomorrow, the San Francisco Giants and St. Louis Cardinals will saddle up and head on down to Birmingham to play at the historic Rickwood Field. NBC's Craig Melvin recently went down to Rickwood and spoke with several down there. Let's watch.
Rickwood Field's green walls contain more than a century of baseball memories. The oldest park in the nation, built in 1910.
Well, this is hallowed ground. I mean, Willie Mays, and Satchel Paige. I mean, it's
Hank Aaron,
Yeah.
Jackie Robinson,
Yes.
all the greats.
All the greats played here. And now it adds a special new chapter. Major League Baseball is preparing for a tribute to the Negro Leagues, a special game honoring players who were excluded from the game they excelled at because of the color of their skin. There were multiple major Negro Leagues established back in 1920, and some lasted for more than 40 years. April Brown is MLB's Senior Vice President of Social Responsibility.
We really hope that young people across the globe learn about these great players, the Negro Leagues players who didn't make a lot of money, but loved the game. They changed the game in many ways. And the game that we see on the field today is a product of that.
One of those men, 99-year-old Bill Greason.
Every Sunday, this ballpark would be filled. This was one of the greatest ballparks we played in.
Even if he'd never picked up a baseball, Greason would be an American icon. He's been a preacher in Birmingham for 5 decades, grew up neighbors with a future Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and became one of the first black men to serve in the Marines. Greason first took the mound at age 22 and played 5 seasons in the Negro Leagues. What was your go-to pitch?
Looked like a fastball.
Yeah.
And drop off the table. It was awful, boy. If I had 2 strikes on you, that's a bye.
During his time with the Birmingham Black Barons, who called Rickwood Field home, he was teammate, mentor, and friend to Willie Mays, one of the greatest players of all time.
what was your relationship with him like?
We were like brothers, and whatever I could do to help him stay strong in the faith and believe he could be one of the best there was.
Greason himself finally made it to the majors in 1954, becoming the first black pitcher in St. Louis Cardinals history.
This is 7 years after Jackie Robinson had already integrated the league. You still faced a fair amount of racism.
Oh, I was not fully accepted, even in the clubhouse. I was apart from the other fellas.
But Thursday night will be a celebration, and there is no better city for it than Birmingham, Alabama. Home to those famous Black Barons, yes, but also an epicenter of the civil rights movement. Once considered the most segregated city in the country, where its black citizens faced fire hoses in the streets and bombs at their churches. A city of both black tragedy and triumph.
So we hope that young people learn about this history, Birmingham being the center of civil rights, and that people learn that there were Negro Leagues players who had dreams to just play this game that they loved, and were able to do it right here.
A fitting homecoming for Reverend Greason and the thousands of fellow players like him.
God gave me a gift. I used it, and it was a blessing.
So awesome, and it will certainly be a very cool game filled with so much history. Now, in case you missed it, a very tragic story that happened over the weekend in Athens. Now, 15-year-old Gabriel McNutt was shot and killed by an Athens police officer after threatening family members and officers with multiple weapons. Yesterday, 48's Matthew King spoke with McNutt's parents, who say their son had a long history of mental illness. The family says they would like to use this tragedy as an example for better access to mental health treatment. Let's take a listen.
When you become a parent, you think of broken bones and scratches. You never think of having to lay your child in a ground. But that's just a body. My boy, he's with Jesus.
The powerful words of Adam and Leslie McNutt, who lost their son Gabriel to a shooting this weekend. The couple says their child's long battle with physical and mental illness is to blame for his suffering. This battle included seizures, mental lapses, and several surgeries.
That affects behavior and impulsiveness and just a lot of, things that will develop into mental illness.
And this past Saturday, they believe that led him to be aggressive around Athens police officers.
Something just flipped, and there was just a glaze over his eyes. He was no longer there.
Officers say Gabriel threw knives at both family members and officers and pulled out a gun before they ultimately shot him.
He looked over at his mom, who was holding his head, and he said, "Mama, please let me go." And we both said, we're not giving up on you. We're fighting for you. And we did. We did, and the cops did. Those two officers showed so much patience and restraint.
To them, this tragedy sheds a light on the importance of mental health care. The McNutts say they did everything they could to get Gabriel treatment for his own mental health issues, but it wasn't enough.
There has to be a change in legislation. It's no one's fault. It's a tragedy. But now we can make it a beautiful tragedy by remembering Gabriel and using his life and his faith to share with others so that it could be hope and to make an impact in the mental health department.
A very sad situation there indeed. Now in Huntsville, in case you missed it, where the co-owner of a barbershop is in need of a new heart. Now 52-year-old Corey Steger, who co-owns the Rocket City Barbershop, was recently told he would only have a year to live, unless he got a heart transplant. Now 48 Savannah Sapp spoke with Steger, and let's take a listen to what led up to this situation.
I've cut like 3 generations. We coached some of the kids in football. It's just been a blessing.
Corey Steger is just 52 years old and has been running Rocket City Barbershop for decades. Now he's facing a major hurdle. He says 23 years ago he was diagnosed with lupus and began receiving treatments for the disease, which eventually went away until 3 years ago.
I was working out. I was considered myself kind of in shape. And they told me I had congestive heart failure. You got fluid on your lungs and your heart.
Now Steger's heart is only functioning at around 15%. He says doctors told him the treatments for lupus could have caused the damage to his heart. Steger is now waiting to be placed on the list for a heart transplant, hoping and praying for an answer.
It's hard to hear that how long you have if you don't get it. Some people say they want to hear about how long they have, but it's kind of hard to hear that.
Have you heard that prognosis?
Yeah, a year. Maybe a year.
Steger has been making regular trips to hospitals in Birmingham for treatments and tests to determine if he's an eligible candidate for a heart transplant. He currently wears a port that helps keep his heart pumping regularly. His wife Nikki, his stepdaughters, and grandchildren are helping him get through each day.
Grandkids help me get through it, but I try to stay upbeat, but I have my moments, like if I'm driving, sometimes I just have to pull over, break down.
Steger's family has set up a fundraiser to help share his journey and gather support for his treatments. He remains hopeful that he gets his chance at a new heart soon, and if he does...
Oh man, I just want to show the love that I got back to people. If I do, I want to be out here in the community doing more than I have.
Now, friends of the family are planning a cookout fundraiser for Corey and his family on June 29th at 2800 Jordan Lane. You can also find a link to his GoFundMe page on our website, WAFF.com. Now, what has been buzzing around North Alabama lately? Let me pull it up for you all right here. Double box. 1 second, y'all. I gotta circle box. There we are. Now, what has been buzzing around North Alabama lately? and that is in Jackson County. Recently, the Alabama Department of Agriculture and Industries announced that Africanized honeybees have been found in both Jackson and St. Clair counties. Now, these Africanized honeybees pose as a threat to the local bee population and are extremely aggressive. Officials say they are setting up a trap within a 5-mile radius of these bees to prevent them from spreading. Yesterday, we spoke with Brittany Allen with the Alabama Department of Agriculture, and here's what she had to say.
Essentially, we are protecting the bees because we're protecting them from these bad genetics. So this is a way to save the honeybees. I can't imagine trying to work with Africanized honeybees on a regular basis and how many beekeepers that would kind of push out of the industry. So we're really there to try to make sure that these genetics don't spread everywhere.
And that would definitely pose a threat if those bees began to spread. Now, 48's Nick Ballinger has been speaking with local beekeepers today, and he will be bringing you all the latest on this developing story. Now in some state news, down in Dothan, where our friends at WTVY recently did a story on elder abuse, which has been increasing in the last decade. Let's listen to some ways you can avoid falling victim to elder abuse.
Alabama DHR reports elderly abuse cases to have increased by 125% in the last decade. It's a statistic that sounds surprising to many, but not Sarcoa staff attorney Bobby Hamill. In fact, he believes that number is low.
A lot of the cases go unreported. In fact, most of them probably go unreported because for a number of reasons.
Elderly abuse is in many forms, including physical and financial, with many of the victims being those without someone in their life to help take care of them.
When someone is lonely by themselves, whether it's from a recent divorce or a loved one passing away, yeah, they are vulnerable targets, and there are people out there that prey on that, unfortunately.
In an attempt to bring these numbers down, Alabama DHR is looking for adult foster families. These families would provide assistance to elderly who can still live in a home setting with some help. Hamill says the idea is great as long as the right precautions are taken.
Before a program moves forward on that, you want to make sure that they're fully vetted and that they're putting the right person in the right position.
If you have an elderly person in your life that may need help, Hamill says it's best to set up wills and the power of attorney early. This gives you some legal traction, especially with scams.
With you having power of attorney, you can potentially prevent them from giving money to anybody and everybody that asks them.
Thank you. And now in more state news, what happens when a valuable item goes missing and is never claimed here in the state of Alabama? WSFA in Montgomery has got you covered with how that process works. Let's watch.
So this is the Babe Ruth, and then this is Roy Campanella and Willie Mays. And
thousands of precious items like those historic baseballs litter Alabama's unclaimed property vault, just waiting to be claimed by their rightful owner.
And if there's been no activity on a safe deposit box for that period of time, then they are required to turn it over to us. So we have not only monetary deposits, but we also have tangibles.
The list of unclaimed items gets updated regularly, so even if you've claimed property before, it doesn't hurt to check again. Once a tangible item has been unclaimed for a period of time, it does head to auction, but you'll still receive the money from the sale.
If Aunt Tilly's jewelry is sold, let's say for $1,000, that $1,000 comes back into her account, so it can be claimed later on, either by Aunt Tilly or by a relative or an heir.
So how can you check? It takes less than 5 minutes. All you need to do is head to treasury.alabama.gov, then click on Unclaimed Property, then type in your information. From there, if you have any property, you can file a claim.
It's easy to claim. We love reuniting people with their own money.
Now, it is certainly starting to get hot out there, and with the heat, it is important to remember the dangers of a hot car, especially for your young ones. A startling new report shows an increase in the number of children who have died after they were left in hot cars. Let's take a listen to NBC's Susan Hogan on what the nonprofit Kids in Cars Safety has found.
Hot car deaths happen all too often, leaving traumatic scars in their wake. In most cases, the child was unintentionally left inside the vehicle, often with the family's change in routine. But how can it happen?
We have a powerful autopilot brain memory system, and it gets us to do things automatically. And in that process, we lose awareness of other things in our mind, including that there's a child in the car.
Even on days with mild temperatures, the heat inside a vehicle can reach dangerous levels within an hour, posing significant health risks to small children or pets left inside.
Children aren't able to efficiently regulate their own body temperature, and their bodies can heat up 3 to 5 times faster than in adults.
One new safety tool: some car manufacturers have introduced technology that goes beyond just reminding drivers if they leave something behind in the back seat.
This new technology could actually detect an occupant.
But this advancement is not widely available. Consumer Reports advice for all parents: create a routine with your own reminders every time you drive.
You should create a habit of putting a personal item in the back seat, like your laptop or your phone. This forces you to visit the back seat after every trip.
And some people go so far as to say, put your shoe in the back. Give yourself a cue so that when you get out of the car, you have that reminder.
It's an easy behavioral change, enough to trigger the brain to do something different that could save a life.
And very important to remember right there. Now let's head into stories you're just not going to want to miss. Now, the benefits of resistance training, porch pirates stealing packages here in North Alabama, and a new History Channel documentary about Jesse Owens and the Berlin Olympics. These are all the stories you're just not going to want to miss in our nightly newscasts. And of course, you're not going to want to miss 48 First Alert Chief Meteorologist, Mr. Brad Travis, with your latest First Alert forecast. So make sure you all stick around to hear what he has to say. And now it is about that time. You all know what time it is. And I don't even have to say it because I know you all know. It is time for Facebook Fun. Today's question that we asked you all is, what is your dream vacation spot? And there were a lot of really good answers. I was shocked. We got some Italys, we got some Alaskas, some Hawaiis, we got some local places. I think one of them was Paint Rock, Alabama. Another was Sheffield, Alabama. Mentone, Alabama was in the comments. So you all had some really good comments, but let's see the top three of my favorite comments. Actually, I have 4. I picked 4 today because, I just had to do it. Sean Jones said Hawaii. Could not agree more. Hawaii is absolutely gorgeous. No matter where you're at in Hawaii, it is like heaven on earth, I swear. So Sean, thank you so much for commenting. We greatly appreciate it. Sherry Frank said Switzerland. That's not a bad choice either. That is, I've never been to Switzerland, but I've heard they have a lot of really good chocolate. They also have some good cheese out there. I've also heard that fancy cheese, that holy cheese. Switzerland seems like an awesome vacation spot. So Sherry, thank you for commenting. J.R. Hurst said Greece. I've seen pictures, so pretty. Thank you for commenting, J.R. And Sarah Akers said Smith Lake. That is, of course, the Smith Lake in Coleman, Alabama. Sarah, thank you so much for commenting. And with that, that is just about all the time I have in today's Before the 4. But I want to thank you so much for sticking around with me this Juneteenth and just sticking around and hearing about today's top stories. But if you haven't done so already, make sure you download the 48 digital app. Turn on those push notifications and get the breaking news delivered directly to you. And the same goes for the 48 First Alert weather app. But with that, that is all the time I have. You all enjoy tonight's newscast, and you know what I got to do. I got to thank you for watching. You all have a great night.